In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my living room, overlooking the can of worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. My name is Mark Anthony Arena, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. We've had a string of special guests past couple weeks, haven't we, folks? I am so thrilled to introduce to you yet another fascinating special guest, a very special guy I just met recently, and he's doing some fascinating things for the world. As y'all know, this show isn't just about entertainment. This show explains what's going on in the world, and then we make sure to talk about how to make this world a better place. And folks, this man is doing just that. Isaac Hernandez, how are you?
I am doing fantastic, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. I am really thrilled to explain, and I say this every episode, I say this every day as I walk around, I say, wow, you know what? Everything on those streaming services now, it's all killing shows. Every show has to be a killing show. Hello, and then you wonder, and then, you know, in the computer world, we say garbage in, garbage out, right?
Uh-huh.
Right, and
that
so
also works. By the way, that also works with our physical health. I mean, we put garbage in our bodies. We're going to put out some garbage.
Oh, make sure you hear the Emily Marino episode that came out last week, because she talks about that absolutely. And so it's the same thing with our souls, right? If you watch, if you watch killing shows all day, every day, then you wonder why everyone kills everyone all the time on the news, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, who are you, and how did you get into what you're doing?
Who am I? All right, well, I am just a regular guy that years and years ago, I mean, I'm 67 now, but when I was like 9 years old, I walked into a small television studio in Los Angeles and just realized, man, this is what I want to do in life. I loved the atmosphere. I loved sitting in the studio with, you know, camera guys and floor directors and all this, and it just looked like a fun type of career. This is when I said 9, I meant 11. I was 11 years old. And that's when I decided that I wanted to get into television, and so I did just that. By the time I was like 16, I started volunteering at a Christian television network, and eventually got hired there, and that's what became my career for a good 40 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did it turn out? Was it as exciting as you thought? What did you do?
You know what? It really was. I had a counselor back when I was in high school that told me something very interesting. He said, you know what? If you really want to be happy in life, if you want to be happy with what you do, pick something that you would do for free, and then find somebody dumb enough to still pay you for it. So.
You know what? My high school counselor told me something similar. He said, if you do something you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. But that's funny. Wow.
Yeah, so I did. I mean, I don't want to imply that those people were dumb, but I literally, if I could, and in the sense I am, if I could, I would continue to do that for free because it wasn't work for me. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. I became a television director, by the way.
Wow. And you're just like me, where we care more about the greater good and making the world a better place. And then it's like, oh, great. Oh, okay. We're also doing this for a living and someone's going to pay us, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. All right. So then you became a television producer, you said.
Yeah. Television director, really.
Director.
Yeah. The producer director. I mean, the producer is basically the guy that just kind of, takes care of all the little details about the show. But the director is the one that is sitting there during the show. In a multi-camera setting, you're punching the which camera is going to be seen. You tell the camera guy what shot to get, and my specialty was actually live production. So it wasn't like we were doing this thing and then we get to edit it later. I mean, what we were cutting at the moment, what I was directing at the moment, is what people saw.
Oh, that's interesting. So like live, I mean, not live sports, but I mean, any kind of live event, right? It's not like you can go back to an editing room and correct it later and so on.
Correct. Yeah. That's it. So if there was a mistake, and sometimes, I did make a bit of a mistake, that's what people saw.
But that's okay. Wow. I mean, it's a live event. Hey, look, I was in AM/FM radio for 10 years, and I never did a live episode because I was always envisioning myself on 390 stuck in a snowstorm. I'm late for everything as it is, so I never ended up I always did pre-recorded for 10 years.
Yeah, no, you become very sharp when you're doing something live, especially when you're talking, just a lot of and usually, by the way, live stuff would be like talk shows and music shows. You obviously wouldn't do a movie live, but so these talk shows, you got to be very sharp, stay ahead of the game, if you will. And we did have what's called I don't remember, it was like a 10-second delay or so, because you always want to be careful that something doesn't happen that would violate, like FCC laws, like somebody. I don't know, cussing, or somebody, suddenly a girl opening up her blouse or something.
Yeah, like in that Super Bowl.
That's correct, yes. Yeah, exactly. And so, but other than that, it's literally just what you're doing is what people are seeing. So you got to stay quite sharp to make sure that it goes as smooth as possible.
All right, and time out, by the way, is there any way you can switch to headphones because I'm hearing myself in an echo?
Really? Oh, actually, I do. I have the little inner monitors.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so you don't have studio monitors going?
No.
All right, cool. All right, then maybe that's fine. That's just my end. Okay, cool. So that's awfully fascinating, and I never got into TV. I'm doing a little bit now where I'm giving speeches at libraries, and they are filming it. And I always said, Isaac, I really wish I had a cameraman just following me around in my life for the past 15 years because of all the bizarre technical issues I've encountered. And I'm thinking, if anyone knew how horribly corrupt and how horribly sloppy my industry is. So I'm finally, in a small way, having people film me and explaining, right, holding up examples and saying, all right, look, folks, here, this is what's going on here, and exposing that. So what are you doing now? What do you want to do with your life?
Well, I would like to just hang around and, go get on the lake and fish or something, but no, that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I spent so many years in the television industry, right? As a director. But then there was a season towards let's call it the end of my television directing career, even though I still do that a little bit as a freelancer. But I got more into what my son called pencil pushing. I became more of a executive at that same television network. Running the programming department. Now, programming is where I bring in whatever programs I want to put on the network, schedule them in, that kind of a thing. And one of the things that my boss wanted me to specifically concentrate on was getting movies for the network. See, the network, which is, it's actually the largest Christian network there is. It's called Trinity Broadcasting Network.
TBN, I've heard of it.
Yeah. Actually, it grew. I mean, when I first started with them, there were only 2 stations. When I left, there must have been 200 or so.
Wow,
maybe more
affiliates.
Maybe, yeah, and So she wanted me to as I was saying, I became a pencil pusher because I was running programming, and my boss wanted for me to specifically concentrate on getting movies, because the network itself was mostly at the time, preachers and teachers and talk shows and music shows, but never movies.
Sure. I mean, that's great. You want to hear sermons on TV, but a movie would be something totally different.
Well, we found out as I started to schedule movies on the network that we would get much, much higher viewership when a movie was scheduled, by far. I mean, it wasn't like, twice as much. We're talking about 10, 15, 20 times as many as many viewers when a movie was on. And so that's when I realized, man, people, really enjoy watching some of these movies, but there isn't a network that does this. There at the time, nobody was really showing Christian movies. They were not showing movies on their network. And so I thought, man, we need a network similar to HBO, for instance, but that plays faith-based content, because obviously HBO is like some of the content they put on, especially now, is not something that a faith-based audience or a Christian audience, a discerning, faith-based audience would want to watch. And so I thought, man, that's what we need. And eventually I found a company that was that basically hired me to launch the first Christian movie streaming platform.
Really?
And so we did launch it. I left the television world, went more into the movie world, and launched the network, which only lasted about 13 years. When COVID hit, it really kind of didn't help us much at all. The company itself, it wasn't so much the movie platform, but the company itself started to have a lot of revenue issues, and so they had to close down certain areas, and one of the areas was the movie platform that I was running. So I got laid off, and thought it was a great time for me to do what I felt I needed to do, which was to launch a TV show, if you will, that talked about some of these movies. Because a lot of these movies don't really have, a lot of the movies that are made in the faith-based space do not have the budget to promote their movies. And so they'll bring out a movie, and maybe a few thousand people get to hear about it, and so so they don't do that well. That's changing. That is changing. But I thought, well, maybe that's what I can do, is just launch a show, talk about them, and hopefully it helps to promote their movies.
Right? Isn't that always the case? And I talk about this with my buddy Jimmy all the time, where you've got some fantastic, magnificent thing and no one hears about it, yet you've got some tripe out there that has billions of viewers, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, I don't know if you remember, there was a movie, gosh, what was it called? It was sort of a horror movie that was done for like, I don't know, 20 grand or something.
Oh, Blair Witch.
Blair Witch, that's the one, Blair Witch Project. But they stuck millions on marketing it, and the thing just made, I don't even know how many, but it was huge success. Not because the movie was a high budget movie, but because they put so much into marketing. Yet you'll have a movie that just has, is a fantastic movie, but and this happens a lot in the faith-based space, by the way. They'll do the best they can in the movie, but then they don't have any money for marketing. And so again, it could be a great movie, but it just doesn't do well because not enough people know about it.
Wow. And that's all right. Before we go on, before we get into what you're doing now, what shows have you directed? Are you able to explain some of the shows you have done in the past?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the bigger shows that I would do for that network is a show called Praise the Lord, which was a live flagship show. The host it was a daily show. The host would interview various guests in the Christian space, whether it be some other preachers or singers or authors, and so that was like the big flagship show of the network. But then I did a lot of other, especially music shows. I'm a musician, and so I had a real knack for music shows. Being able to cut rhythmically, that kind of thing. Just kind of feel the artistry. It isn't just having a shot of somebody, but it's artistry of movement within within the show.
I love that. It's creative. It's artistry.
One specific one that I was extremely proud of was, and it was a copycat. It was during the time of Arsenio Hall, and there was a gentleman who was really pretty well known in the Christian music world. His name was Leon Patillo. He used to sing with the group Santana. He was the lead singer for the group Santana for I don't know how long, but he had become a Christian, and he came in and he suggested he said, I want to do some kind of a show, with different artists. He knew a lot of Hollywood, level guests that he could bring on. So I thought, man, why don't we do something like Arsenio Hall's show, but obviously in the Christian space? And so we did one called Leon and Friends. His name was Leon Patillo, of course, and we did Leon and Friends, and he brought in a lot of his friends, and it was just a really fun show to do. Live band, and then a lot of guests like Smokey Robinson and
Really?
I don't know, just a bunch of more well-known Hollywood type guests. So that was a lot of fun for me to do.
Really? And my grandma was a big fan of Smokey Robinson. So, and folks, and by the way, all right, so tell me what you ended up doing, because like you were saying, you see all these good movies that are out there that have a moral to them and they have something beneficial, right? And again, on last week's episode, we talked about what you're feeding yourself. Are you feeding yourself something that makes you worry, like political shows that you can't do anything about? Or are you feeding yourself something that'll actually improve yourself? So you saw all these movies, you wanted to help promote them. What did you do?
Well, again, I launched this show, but let me back up a tad, because you're bringing a really good point about last week's show. And that is one of the things that really propelled me into wanting to really promote these good, what I call health food entertainment.
Yeah.
Okay? And the way that happened was I'm a diabetic. I have been pre-diabetic for many, many years. And at one point, I got a letter from my doctor saying, "Hey, Isaac, I'm going to need to put you on insulin because you're pretty much full-blown diabetic." And I really didn't want to do that. I hated shots. I'm like, man, I can't, stick a needle in me. And so my daughter-in-law said, "Why don't you check out this documentary called Forks Over Knives?" And it all has to do with the plant-based, basically, diet, right?
Yeah.
And so I did that for a while. I'm not a vegetarian anymore, but I did try it for about a year or two, and my numbers went down. My health really improved. I mean, I was like really doing well. And then I just and I don't know exactly who your audience totally is, but I hope they'll understand when I say I heard from God. Okay. And I heard him say, "That's great, but what about the health of your soul?" And I was like, well, what in the world does that mean, And then I began to think about that, and I just realized that just like what you eat determines how your body reacts and what the health of your body is, same thing, is with what your soul eats. See, the way our body eats is, of course, through our mouth, and we eat hamburgers and hot dogs and cake and cookies and whatever, and that doesn't do too well for us. But if we change our eating habit, that makes our body react in a positive way. Well, the same way the soul eats through your eyes and through your ears. In other words, what you watch, what you hear, is what determines the health of your soul. And I realized we had been eating a lot of very unhealthy entertainment, a lot of unhealthy food. And so that's what really just compelled me to go, I got to find a way to get people to know all about these healthy entertainment, the good, healthy movies and TV shows, music. More on the movie side, just because I had spent some time dealing in the movie side. So I launched this show called Faith on Film. And at first, I thought, well, I'll just do it as a YouTube channel. And I have enough friends in the faith-based movie industry that I can probably do a weekly show very easily. Yeah,
that's what I'm doing. I have no idea how I come in contact with all these people. I just meet someone new and I got a weekly show, come on my show. And it just, people just show up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and the funny thing is, so I did something interesting. I'm going to call it interesting. I I posted on Facebook that I was going to do this. And the reason I did that is because if I didn't, I knew that I would talk myself out of it at some point before really doing it.
Oh, like setting, you're planning a goalpost for yourself. I need to do that more.
I was planning an accountability. I said, okay, if I put it on there, then I have to do it because my word is important to me. And by making it public, now I'm going to have to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And interestingly enough, I right away get a message on the comments line from a streaming platform that had about 1 million subscribers. And he says, hey, Isaac, can I have your show for my network? It was a streaming network.
Wow.
Sure. I said, but, it's not a big show. It's more of a podcast kind of a thing with video. It's a video podcast. And he says, look, I don't care. It's you, and that's all that matters to me. So I'm like, okay.
That's something where... where people love you for who you are. Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing.
40-something years, you at 40-something years, you develop a reputation. And so this is all on comments. Well, then another gentleman who was a colleague of mine, we still both worked for the same media company. I ran that movie streaming platform. He ran a network that was on DirecTV. So, which again, DirecTV at the time was like, I think 18 or 19 million households that had DirecTV. And he had a network on there called Uplift TV. So he said, hey, wait a minute, how come they're getting the show, this other platform, and we're not? When you work for us, we both work for the same company.
So now they're fighting over you.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm like, wait a minute. It's not really a big show, And he goes, well, no, you let me decide that. And see, the thing is, there was no shows like this at the time. Nobody was talking about movies. They're talking about the Bible. They're talking about the latest Christian book. But nobody was talking about movies. And so it became something that people wanted. And that's how I started. I literally launched the show on a streaming platform with 1 million subscribers and a satellite network, DirecTV, with over 18, 19 million subscribers. I mean, what a way to kick off the show, besides my YouTube channel.
So it's available on all those networks right now as well as YouTube?
Uplift TV ended up going under as well. But now it's available on like 28 different streaming platforms and networks and TV stations across the country. A couple of networks that have like a couple of hundred stations across the country, one in Canada, and then on several TV stations in top markets. I mean, it's on a TV station in Orlando, in Atlanta, in Nashville, in El Paso, and then a bunch of streaming platforms. But interestingly enough, on that whole issue with the comments and people, and those two networks saying, "Hey, we want the show," another person saw those comments and called me up. Now, she's a pretty well-known actress. Was on the show Matlock, the original show Matlock. Her name is Nancy Stafford, and she calls me up. And she says, "Hey, Isaac, I just see that you're starting a show. I'd like to be your first guest." So I'm thinking, I am now starting a show on a satellite network, on a major streaming platform, and my first guest is a well-known Hollywood actress who happens to be a Christian, but she's a Hollywood actress. What a way to start. It was a great start for us.
That's unbelievable. And you know what? Before I met you, I think it was a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, I actually stumbled on your show somehow. I think it was the Kevin Sorbo episode. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
And I watched it. I remember that, and I thought it was so cool. And all of a sudden, someone introduced us, and I go, "Oh, wait a minute! Wow, yeah, I remember that guy. I watched his show."
Well, that's funny. Wow.
And folks, by the way, even that my show is a non-political show and all that. And folks, even if you're not a Christian, my point here, again, like I said a few minutes ago, is, hey, guess what? If all you're showing people is killing shows, hello, what do you think's going to happen? That's scientific method, folks, right? So if you show anyone a positive, uplifting show of any kind, society will end up improving, okay? And that's so important. And I would love to do that. I'm writing books about, I have my technology books that I'm writing about how to improve your life there, but also I'm writing personal books. Because same deal, right? Hey, I went through some ordeals. Here's what I did to fix my life. So you're reading something, yeah, it's going to be entertaining and snarky, but it's also going to be, hey, here's how to fix your life. Here's how to look for truth in a world of distraction.
Yeah, absolutely, and I believe that in the world of entertainment, whether it be movies, whether it be music, uh, you know, it the if you're familiar with the whole frog in the pot where you slowly start to boil.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah. The
well,
frog, if you boil the pot slowly, the frog doesn't
yeah,
notice until
doesn't
it's too
do it.
late, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that kind of has happened, I believe, in entertainment because at this point, it just became I'm going to call it worse, so slowly that we don't even realize where we're at in terms of what we're, ingesting in terms of entertainment. But if you take a look at what's there now and you take a look at, let's say, what was there 40, 50 years ago, you go, wow, that's a huge difference in what is acceptable now.
Oh, right. I love watching Beverly Hillbillies and, I mean, even Seinfeld, right? They had a lot of adult topics, but at least they had to be creative about it, right? Now, if everything is, what's the word? If everything is depraved, right? There's no creativity at all, right? I enjoy watching Andy Griffith and all these old shows because there was some value to them. And by the way, to your point there is I call it anti-improvement, right? Everything in my industry every year anti-improves. Products get cheaper and more hollow and not as well made, right? Everything is worse. And yeah, we could sit there, like I always say, my industry is evil and yada yada, but really it's just people thinking they're doing the right thing. So like you're saying, it's just a gradual worsening of everything. And I'm going to read an article in a second about it. It's a gradual worsening that we don't notice because we're not zoomed out looking at the big picture.
Right, exactly.
Ready for an article?
Let's do it.
All right, this is from techspot.com from 2021, and it says, your Google account will soon default to two-step verification. Okay, I call this the two-factor scandal, right? You're trying to log into something, and it asks you to log in, and then you have to log into your phone, and then you have to get a text, and then you have to log into Authenticator, and then you have to log into that. I could see...
me nuts.
Right, thank you. Right? It's an attempt to secure people's lives. It's an attempt to make things safer, but in reality, the only thing it can actually do is drive people nuts. And this is a perfect example, right? I always try to tie together what we're talking about to an article. Perfect example of how you have these little incremental, that's the word, little incremental changes to make something worse, but then eventually it blows up into this to a point where it's unsustainable. Case in point, this morning, I was trying to log into my publisher's website to make sure that I ordered a case of books for myself, of one of the books I wrote. And the publishers, I love this publisher, and I promote them, and they're a great alternative to Amazon, and they have a bigger reach, and yada yada. I love the publisher. But I go on there to change my billing and shipping address because they still, of course, when you change your address on a website, there's 9 places and they keep having 9 copies of your old address, even though you've thought you changed them all. So I do that. And then it attacks for a two-factor. I said, wait, I'm already logged in. What are you doing? It says, well, you need to do a two-factor in order to change your address. I'm already in. If I was a bad guy, I would have been in already. What are you doing? As if some terrorist is sitting on my shoulder in my living room here? Really? So I wrote them an angry email saying, what? I said, what's wrong with your programmers? Are they paranoid? So I guess the point is it ties in. And I used to promote Gmail. I brought thousands of clients over to Gmail, but slowly, every 6 months now, they unleash an attack on their own users to make the thing horribly terrifying in order to use.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I've been on Gmail for the longest time, and every once in a while, when they change something, I'm like, wait a minute, I like what I was using. Why do I have to have it be different now? Even just the look, just the look of the page.
Yeah,
itself.
In order to justify their paycheck. And side note, by the way, folks, if you are using Gmail through the webmail interface, go to settings and then turn off anything that says smart or automatic or AI, and your experience will increase dramatically. You won't have those suggestion attacks. Listen to this. This is a feature for millennials where it says, shame on you. You haven't responded to that person. Why don't you do that? And here's what we think you should tell them.
Oh,
What?
geez, you're kidding.
Yeah, it
Wow.
says, here's what we think you should tell them because you haven't responded. What's your problem? Or, hey, they haven't responded in a while, and it does a nudge. It says nudge. And why don't you get back? Why don't you follow up with them? What's your problem? So it's now encouraging people to nag people who haven't gotten back to each other. Really? So...
Yeah, it's crazy.
One of the things I do in life is I turn off all the AI features. That's your tip of the day, folks. Go to Gmail, go to settings, turn off anything that says automatic correction, automatic anything, smart, and then they'll attack twice. And they'll say, shame on you. You think you need these. We think you need these. What do you think you're doing? What's your problem? And then again, it berates you later on. It says, why'd you turn those off? What's your problem? So obviously they're very desperate for some reason.
Oh my goodness.
So that's what I'm doing to help the world. But it sounds like so you're doing the Faith on Film show. What else can we do to make this world a better place? Are you going to make shows? Are you going to, I mean, there's such a huge opportunity. What are you going to do? What's your dream?
Well, for me, is also including some other kind of shows that I want for us to do besides Faith on Film. There's a segment that we sometimes put in there called Holly on Hollywood, and that is where my co-host Holly McClure basically talks about a Hollywood movie, not necessarily a faith-based movie, not even a movie perhaps that is good for families, but she just talks about this movie and tells you what's on the movie so that you can decide if it's something you want to see or not. And I would like to turn that into a complete show, actually, called Holly on Hollywood, in which she just talks about Hollywood movies. So that's one thing. The other one is I used to love when Barbara Walters would do these more in-depth interviews because when we do Faith on Film, we just kind of talk about the movie they're in and promote the movie, and that's about it. But some of these people's lives are very interesting. So I would love to do these specials like Barbara Walters used to do, where we pick a person like a Kevin Sorbo and spend an hour with him just getting it really in-depth into his life and who he is and why he does what he does. So that's another vision for technically not Faith on Film, but for the parent company, One Purpose Media, to produce shows like this. And the other one would be more of a town hall where I can bring in several people in the faith-based movie industry, producers, directors, maybe some actors, and pick a topic, pick a subject that perhaps they don't even agree with, but we'll talk about it. Something interesting would be, for instance, should there be some foul language in a Christian movie? Could there be? Because there are some people that actually think that, there could be. They're just words, and it's more realistic. You can't have a serious thug say, "Oh my gosh," right?
Right. And by the way, what was the movie?
Realistic.
What was the Mark Wahlberg movie that came out last year? He was a priest, but he was in fistfights all the time. So
Yes,
I get what you're saying, where they wanted to make it realistic. And by the way, I'm writing a book, right, about anxiety and some horrible things I went through. And I will not use gratuitous language. However, there are a couple times when people said something to me, and I want it to be accurate of what...
Right. Yeah.
That's
it's a
interesting.
conversation. I'm not telling you right now, in fact, where I would lean on that, whether I think it's okay or I don't think it's okay at all. I'm not going to say that, but I think it would be an interesting conversation to have with these producers, and let's just talk about it,
Yeah. All right, and what about... what was I going to ask you? That's really interesting. Where so I see what you're saying. Where with Holly on Hollywood, where there were a couple rare moments in my life when I did watch a normal Hollywood movie and think, wow, that was actually really beneficial. Hey, that was really if you remember Pursuit of Happyness with Will Smith and Reign Over Me. Remember Reign Over Me with, I believe that was an Adam Sandler movie. That was really powerful. It was a 2008 movie, really, really powerful, about people who are going through things, and the people around them will get together and lift them up. And absolutely. So Hollywood has the potential to do some really good stuff. There are plenty of great movies like that. Wow. So,
and the thing is, the Holly on Hollywood show would kind of let you know what's in the movie, because again, there can be a movie that's a great movie, and but you're the kind of person that does not want to hear a single cuss word. Okay. And so,
And I get that if you're showing kids a movie, right?
Yeah, so you go to the movie and then you go, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was on there. And so that's what Hollywood would do. It would say, you know what, here's a great movie. It's got this, but be aware because it does have, 7, F-bombs, let's say. And then so that if somebody says, well, I can't do that, then they'll know rather than be surprised when you get there. My brother-in-law said he went to see a movie a few months ago, and all of a sudden in the middle of the movie, there was 2 guys making out. He can't handle that. He doesn't want to see that. So if he'd have known, he probably wouldn't have gone to see it. So it's another important show.
I've heard, I think it's called a Dove rating, I want to say, where there's a faith-based company, and they give a movie a Dove rating, where they give an opinion of a movie, and hey, by the way, this is what... You know what you could do? Just like when I used to buy CDs as a kid, right? They would have a parental advisory sticker, or it would say clean version. You could do a clean version, a made-for-TV version of it. You could have 2 versions, and
the idea of the show would be because people want to go to theaters, and it would be to know that they might say, well, I'll have to wait till I get that TV version of it.
Sure, my dad's walked out of plenty of movies. He'll call me later, and I walked out of Little Nicky or something. I remember that one, and he's walked out of plenty. So, how can people watch your show? I'm so
Okay. So I could give you a list of all the different places that I'm at, just so that if somebody says, "Oh, I have that access. I have access to this network. Oh yeah, I'm in Orlando. I can watch it here." But I think the easiest thing is to just go to our YouTube channel, because you can do that no matter where you're at. Faith on Film TV. Okay, Faith on Film TV. In fact, the URL is youtube.com/@faithonfilmtv, and that takes you right to it. But if you just go to YouTube and look Faith on Film TV, you'll find the show.
Faith on Film TV, easy enough. That's very easy, and I'm looking forward to watching more than one episode of your show. And
I got 241 up right now.
Oh wow! I just celebrated my 100th episode of this show, so a couple weeks ago. So you're about to do your 250th. Wow!
I'm getting close, yeah. What's interesting is, again, Nancy Stafford was my episode 1. When I went to my 100th, I'm like, I need to have her back. And so I had her back for episode 100.
Oh, that's cool. Right. My episode 100, I had my favorite guy on as well, who's my occasional co-host, and that's so cool. Isaac Hernandez, I am so looking forward to getting to know you more, and thank you so much for being on the Computer Exorcist podcast, thecomputerexorcist.com to buy my book. And your website is faithonfilmtv.com, is that right?
That's right, and if they go there, I actually have access to all the shows there. So if they go there instead of YouTube, they can go to the part that says shows, and they can hit a show, and it takes them to YouTube. But also, there's a tab there where they can donate to us, because I've done this all on my own money, my own ticket, if you will, and but we're wanting to, as I laid out in the vision, we're wanting to improve things, and we wanted to grow the show. And so people can help us out, and they can become partners with us and donate, whatever you can. You can do a one-time donation. You can do multiple, a monthly donation, however you want. So you can do all that at the website.
I'm a pretty tight-fisted guy, but I will donate to this because I see the value of what you're doing. You are quite literally making this world a better place. So, folks, feel free to donate at faithonfilmtv.com. And, awesome. Thanks so much.
I appreciated the opportunity.